All right, hey everybody. Hey, it's Carrying Stones and Digging Holes weekly talk. And this week, I have Robin Youngblood on, and we're going to go ahead and talk to her today and see what she has to share with us. And so excited to have her on, and we're gonna see where it goes. All right, girl.
Are you just like turning it over to me and saying go?
No. But we had kind of like talked about some stuff that we had thought might be important to talk about that a lot of people sometimes don't understand, like how we can all be related, right? How everything can be related. And also just certain types of cultural mindsets. And so just some topics. So, and I thought you would be really great to talk about talk about those topics. So where do you want to start out?
I like we are all related.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah. I think it's incredibly important right now because our country and the world is so divided. You know, I travel to so many places. South Africa is one of my favorites, but it's also one of the countries that is horrifically divided. And if the coronavirus gets a leg up in any of the township communities, whole communities could die. Yeah. And it's all because of the division and inequality between black and white. Here, it's not just black and white, it's also Indian and Asian and so forth. And people seem to have forgotten that we're all the same species. We're all brothers and sisters. This whole thing about immigration has been just, oh gosh, it's a physical hurt to me to watch all that's happening about build this wall and this and that and the other thing. As a matter of fact, I just made a big post this morning on Facebook about the difference between love and fear and what some of the words are that differentiate the two for us, because people seem to have a big problem with discernment these days. They don't seem to get that there's a big difference between fear-based conspiracy theories and love-based actions that create community and accord and harmony and all those kinds of things. And you know, I listen to, I'm fairly political this time around, which is very unusual for me. Up until the second Obama election, I was an independent. The only reason that I became a Democrat at that point in time was because I'd moved to Washington and they wouldn't let me vote in the primary unless I was either a Democrat or Republican. And I certainly wasn't going to be Republican at that moment. I wanted to vote for Obama. Yeah. So since then, I'm watching what happened in 2016, which horrified me. Really watching and listening to all the divisive words that have been going on. You know, the things that are simply not true. They're total lies. We now actually, I was born in Oregon, and in Oregon now there's a senatorial candidate, who is a QAnon believer. I'm like, how does that happen? What causes that? Well, what causes it is that somehow we think we're different from each other. even the things that are happening to your tribe, Bev, the Mashpee Wampanoag, it's because the community outside the reservation thinks that they're different, and because they're white and wealthy, they should have their way.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I watch all these things, and I see the veil that seems to be over people's eyes,
Yeah.
it's really disturbing to me. You know, I was taught, and you'll remember this, Bev, from our times in circle together. We talked about there is no us and them.
Mm-hmm.
It's all us. Yeah. And that even means the people who are into the conspiracy theories and so forth, they're the same as we are. They have the same needs, the same human desires, um, but they don't seem to understand that we're all the same. And that's really hard for me. And on top of that, not only is it hard to watch that humans think other humans aren't the same, it's even harder to watch that humanity thinks we're different and above all the other creations on earth. Yeah. Whether they're animal, vegetable, the tree people, the stone people, whatever they are all infused with, imbued with, alive with the breath of spirit. They couldn't be created without that. That means we're all related. Our intelligence is different than the animals, but does that mean it's better? I don't see them doing the things that we're doing to ruin the environment and to make other nations extinct. They work on instinct, and instinct seems to be about survival. We work on supposedly measured intelligence that is also about survival. Yeah? But what we seem to have done in the last 30 or 40 years is we seem to have cut off our hearts from our minds. In the way that I was taught, and what Black Elk said, Black Elk originally said that the longest distance is the 18 inches between the heart and the mind. Yeah? In the ways that I've been taught all the way along since I became a young adult, our minds are supposed to be the tools of our hearts. Modern culture seems to switch that around, if they consider the heart at all. And they say that our brains are supposed to make all the decisions, that we need to have factual decisions instead of emotional decisions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. For me, that's the first basic lie. And there are many other lies that have followed it, because if you change that truth, everything else has to change with it. And maybe it started way before 30 or 40 or 70 years ago when I was born. Probably started way back with patriarchy. Yeah, because that's a falsehood. And it's a falsehood that says that the mind needs to be in control, and that by being in control, that we can have and create and do anything we basically want to. And our current president is kind of proving that, because he does things that are blatantly illegal and nobody calls him on it. He's got him so duped that even highly reputable senators and governors are falling in line just because they can't afford what they think would happen to them if they stood up for what they believe. Yeah, that's a really sad thing to see. You know, over the years, I've loosened up on some things and tightened up on others. One of the things that I've loosened up on is that I've come to understand that each of us has our own reality, our own quote unquote little t truth. Okay. Those little truths aren't the same as the capital T truth, which has to do with the universal laws. There aren't a lot of universal laws. If you believe in Jesus, Jesus probably stated them best. Love Creator above everything else and love your neighbor as yourself. That's pretty much it. There are a few laws to, how the stars stay in the sky and how we revolve around the sun and the moon and all that kind of thing. But most of the laws for human beings are condensed into those two. Are we doing that? I hope so. I know some of us are. Are enough of us doing that we are going to be able to come together and birth a new earth? I hope so on that scale too. Do I know that? Not right now. I heard and read yesterday that over the last couple of weeks, one of these right-wing conspiracy websites has gained 300,000 members. I put up Birthing a New Earth this last week, Facebook group, yeah? We've got 300 members. And I thought that was great because, man, they were signing up like crazy, yeah? We need to be at 300,000 members. We need to be at 3 million, maybe even 3 billion members who are all not only wanting to, but knowing that they have a part of birthing this new earth. That our parts, all of our parts are valuable. They're all wonderful. And the sum of the parts is much greater than the whole. So if we remember that and we understand that we're all related, it changes everything.
Yeah, everything related. I had a experience, you always do. You invite people on your radio show or to give a talk, and you're going to have this relationship, and then all of a sudden, whatever the topic is, you get to clear beforehand. So my student, Ryan Hunter, who is my only student, shamanism student, and I, the last 6 months, we've been like working extremely hard through all of our personal stuff and our timelines, and so we're pulling in all this energy and to make changes, because we're both kind of defiant right now that we're going to make this turn, even if we have to drag it all ourselves. It's going to happen. Like, we're not going to do it. But I had to step away from a lot of political stuff. I've had to step away from people, a lot of people and their hardness. and go kind of back to working with nature, like 100%, because I realized they're not 100% in the game either. They're waiting to see what we're going to do, and they're on the off, on the sideline. In 2014, I did like 10 days of ceremony up north, and it was like a really intense period, and there was a lot of crazy stuff that happened, and I ended up being homeless, really, really homeless, living in my van on, and I ended up on the East Coast, and I was in rest stops, trying to make my way back west. So I called it the 5 months of vision quest, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there were all kinds of really crazy energetic stuff that happened for like 5 months straight. It was even hard to actually physically drive when I had to drive, because I just wasn't even in, it probably shouldn't have been behind a wheel of anything. But there was this moment where I looked up. I finally was leaving this rest stop after 6 days. I had a major dark force attack, was severely attacked. It just brushed me, but it made me violently ill for about 6 days. Kind of had to work through it, had the shakes in my car. And then some friends of mine sent me some cash so that I could get out of that rest stop. So right about the time I ended the work and cleared this brush with this dark force, and I was getting on the road. It was early in the morning, and I got a Starbucks coffee. I was like so excited, I'm like, oh my God, coffee. I'm on the road. And I remember I looked up in the sky, and there was the craziest cloud being I have ever seen in my life. And there was nothing else in the sky. And it was so crazy that I was getting ready to take a drink of coffee. I had my pedal on the metal, and I was doing like 50 in my van. And I look up and I see this thing, and I'm like swerving like all over the road. I got coffee flying everywhere. And I had to pull over on the side of the highway to actually look at it, because I just was so shocked, at this being. And then the thing started talking to me, it was like saying, okay, we have not trusted humans for like thousands of years. We said that it was representing the cloud nation and the sky beings, the air factions. And it said, that it didn't trust people, hasn't trusted people to make the right decisions, and that they felt like we had been doing enough, that some of us had been doing enough work, enough ceremonies, enough, prayer, enough whatever, that he was notifying me that they were in the game. They're going to return back to try to help us. So that from that point forward, I realized, like, for me, a lot of the work is going, I've tried to help people. I've been working on people, healthcare, all kinds of stuff for a long time, and people are reverting back to, I don't even know where. And that's when I really realized I had to really start working with the other beings, because if they're not in the game, then there's no possible way that I can help this situation. If there's like not a lot of trust, So this last couple weeks, I started doing what I call, it's like the shamanism thing that I work on, that I do. And I started going back through my timeline, my personal timeline, and seeing where like it may have gotten off track. So there was a specific place when I was 23, I'm 51 now. So I spent about 2 weeks rewinding it to that point, to where I could actually sit over a couple weeks and actually go through that whole year period around this house like that I lived in. And I realized like there was a whole bunch of things that were there that made the decisions where I'm at now that were not good decisions. And these things are still kind of like playing out. So I decided to go back and actually clear up the whole event, day by day by day by day that I was in this house. So when I got to the end of it, my student and I went for a walk on Thursday, and it was crazy because it wasn't super cold out and there wasn't really a lot of wind. But as soon as I got out of the car, I could feel this stuff in my gut, and it was intense. It almost dropped me. And he was standing there, and I said, okay, you've got to ground, you've got to hold it together because it's like it's going to unravel, it's coming out. And so as we started to walk, the wind started getting like super crazy. It's like, like the whole thing is going crazy. My dog, all the animals are like totally freaking out. And my student is just, just cool as a cucumber. I'm like, dude, just hold it together. You've got to be the grounding point for this to happen. Because we've done things before in the past that were super, super intense that, if we didn't have the trust, we could have been killed trying to clear up some of this kind of stuff. So anyway, we ended up on the trail, and it all started to kind of unravel, and boom, it like all came out. It all kind of unraveled back through that period of time. And because I was unraveling my stuff, everything that I'd been involved with all the different people that I've known, it also unraveled a whole bunch of collective. And then everything stopped. The wind stopped, the sun came out, my dog was calm, I was calm. My body felt like a new body, like it totally unraveled. I could feel it from the internal part. My spine snapped open, my gut opened. And so I knew everything was cleared. But I think that there's so much, and this is coming from, white, but there's so much murder and violence that is left behind on the soil and the water, that people need to go to these areas. I mean, what's that one place? Burgundy, is it? Not Burgundy, but one of those areas in Europe where it was constant war, like war. Normandy. I mean, people need to get together, and they need to go to these areas, and they need to heal that water, and they need to heal that dirt, where all this blood was shed, and all of these people were murdered and gunned down. In our area, we have a lot of what happened to the Paiutes. A lot of people don't know, but there were reports in 1850 from military that said they didn't even have to use their guns. They used rocks to murder the people because they wouldn't even like stand up. So you have these atrocious like acts of violence, and this blood, what I mean, that contaminates everything, right? It's like this original sin is the way that I look at it. And we have to go back and heal these places, to be able to get at least these areas to start vibrating, like to get the vibration to raise, especially in the water. Because and so that's a lot of the stuff that I do is I go to places. I don't trespass or anything. I go when I'm asked, and I help to release a lot of the really bad stuff that has happened, and I try to always get to the root. But I think like if we're all one, then we have to our friend the water, right? The water is our sister, it's our mother, it's our friend. We have to raise the vibration of that. We have to heal what's been laid upon that water, whether it's my problem or somebody else's problem, or we don't even really know what really happened there. But to be able to come together and go to those areas, or imagine us going to those areas and trying to heal, the layers and layers until we can get it raised. Because I find that for me, it works. I can get this work done easier than if I work on people. If I go to someone's house and I clean their house, I can shift them in ways I could never shift them if I would have talked to them or spent a lot of time with them trying to change them. So I kind of look at it kind of from that perspective of dealing with the earth and trying to help the earth overcome the contamination of violence that's been laid on areas. Because I don't know what else to do, right? That's it. That's all I can do. And realizing that the wind was there. So the wind was there to help me. The storm rolled in, the clouds were there to help me to release this on Thursday. all the animals, including my dog. She was acting crazy as all crazy. But everything was set the stage for, okay, we're going to help you take care of this. You know, we're going to help you to release all this stuff, not just your stuff, but other people's stuff in the collective. And that was the first time I ever really felt like nature stepped in and said, this is going to be a big one. So we're going to help you. We're going to help you take care of this because it's a big one, and we're not sure you're going to fare well. We don't want you to be sick because you're doing this kind of work anymore. We're going to come in because you're our friend, you're our sister, you're our caretaker, you're our steward, right? Kind of a thing. So it was an intense thing that happened to me on Thursday. It was the first time that nature fully stepped in on all levels and really helped out, which gives me a lot of hope and faith that they're ready. You know, those beings are, they're ready to go, they're locked and loaded.
I think they've always been locked and loaded. They're just waiting for us. When I first moved to Maui, I went to ceremony in a kind of a hippie ceremony, yeah, and it was the 1st of May, and there was a person there who had supposedly studied with Tony Robbins, and he did fire walking and all those kinds of things. Well, I was at the maypole probably an hour or so before that ceremony started, and all of a sudden my left leg started shaking, and I heard, "You don't have to do this." And I thought, I don't have to do what? And then I realized that it might mean the fire walking ceremony, but I'd already committed to going. Yeah. So I continued to do what I had committed to, and I walked the fire. 70% of us got burnt. Okay. That's not supposed to happen. The man did not hold space for us. He didn't take us into a lodge. He didn't do a meditation. He didn't do anything except say, okay, I built the fire. There it is. Go. Right? Okay. Well, that experience was enough to get me very cautious about what was happening on Maui. And I was walking around in flip-flops with bandages on my feet. And so were a whole bunch of other people. And I had met a guy, a new boyfriend kind of thing, who wanted to take me around the opposite side of the island, exactly almost opposite of where this fire walking thing had happened. I didn't want to go, and he kept urging me. And I knew I didn't want to go because there was something big that was going to happen there. Yeah. Finally, I said, okay, well, let's do this thing. So we went to that place, and before we were even out of the car, I knew what I was being called to, and I was terrified. So I went over to a big stone and sat down on it and saw humans being sacrificed. Now, human sacrifice is something that is abhorrent to me. Just about any kind of blood sacrifice is abhorrent to me, right? So I basically told Mom, I got it. She wanted to clear that energy. It had been held there for centuries. And I said, okay, but I really need to understand this if I'm going to be the channel for this. What she showed me was that in that culture, it was the Tahitians who had come to the Hawaiian Islands. All right, there were already Hawaiians there, what we now call the Menehune, the little people. It actually was Manahune, which meant strong, small people. okay? Strong with the breath of spirit. At any rate, they had retreated back into the hills when the Tahitians came because the Tahitians were doing this human sacrifice thing, and the Hawaiians did not like that at all. But the Tahitians were these big, tall people, and they were warriors, and they came with war weapons and so forth. The Hawaiians didn't do that. So they just disappeared into the hills. Okay, so I'm questioning as all this energy is running through me and I'm shaking like a leaf. I'm questioning why did they do this? Why were they sacrificing people? And of course, the people they were sacrificing were young virgin women. So what their shaman showed me was that there was a belief system that the only thing that they had that was enough to offer in thanksgiving for all that they've been given when they came to Hawaii, because it was abundant in everything they could ever need, was a human life. And this person showed me that the young women were talked to beforehand. They agreed to this. They chose to jump off the cliff and into shark-infested waters, and that they believed that they would be reborn in just a few days, and that they would never have to experience this again. Okay. All right. I get it. I still don't like it, but I get it. And Mom said, no, you don't. You don't get it. You need to forgive this for everybody who couldn't. I said, how can I do that? There's 100,000 other people who need to do that. And most of them aren't even alive anymore. Spirit said, you need to do it. You have the energy to be able to let this clear. You know how to be a hollow bone. You know how to let this energy run through you. You're already doing it. So the next piece is to forgive it. The Hawaiian nation believes in ho'oponopono, which is way different than the way that it's being taught right now, but nonetheless, the end result of it is forgiveness. Yeah. So eventually I got to the point where I could say, I forgive for everybody. I'll be a proxy. Yeah.
I agree.
And
No
during,
fear. Forgive it all. I forgive it all. Take it on.
during this time, all this energy, incredible energy had been running through my burnt feet. Yeah. I just took my sandals off and put them on the cool patio here. My feet were like, oh, I'm hot. I remember that. Anyway, the energy just stopped at the moment that I said, I'll forgive. It was done. It was complete. Yeah. When I went back to my friend and the car, he said, what the heck happened over there? I said, what do you mean? He said, well, there were tourists walking all over the place, but where you were, I couldn't see anything but these lines of energy. I said, yeah, I know. Yeah. That was my first experience at clearing a piece of land in that kind of a big way. It's happened many times since then. And in many places on the earth. I'm really enjoying seeing Bev. And Bev, I wonder if you remember that in the 90s when we had the drum circle, I went through this time when my body would just start shaking, and it would be so full of energy I couldn't stop it. It felt like being plugged into a 220 million volt electric socket.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I didn't understand what that was until I went to a couple of elders, and they said, oh, well, you made a contract that when you turned 40 this lifetime, that you would open the chakras in the soles of your feet and let Mother run her energy through you to release the things that have been stuck in her. Okay. You have to let it run, because at that point, I'd been trying to stuff it back down. I didn't understand it. I didn't want it. Yeah. So from that point on, I learned to just let it run until it was done. But it happened in all kinds of places. I'd step on a sidewalk that looked perfectly normal, and all of a sudden I'd be shaking. Yeah. I'd find out later, sometimes I didn't find out at all, but sometimes I'd find out later, oh, there was a massacre there. Yeah. Oh, there was a huge war here. Oh, these people didn't survive because they didn't have the food and the resources that they needed in the middle of winter. And they were all sad and scared. Yeah. And then it started happening with water, because apparently I'm a water carrier. We all are, we're women. But one of the aunties told me that I was supposed to be doing ceremonies for the water. And so I really understand what you're talking about the water. Yeah. Bridget, we need to clear earth, air, water, and even fire. Yeah. One of the things that's happened in the last maybe 15, 20 years, probably since you were a very young adult, Bridget, is that Mom has been escalating her warnings. Yeah. We were told 40 years ago at least that this kind of stuff was going to happen. What's happening exactly right now? And we didn't really get it. And a whole bunch of people didn't want to get it. They just wanted to go on with business as usual. So we didn't really do anything. And probably 15 years ago, we started recognizing that we needed to do something about climate change, global warming, we called it then. And we still didn't listen. Unless maybe there was a huge earthquake where we were, or a huge forest fire or something like that, right? I was in this huge mudslide in 2014, killed 43 of my neighbors. Underneath the mud and the water, I heard Mom screaming, I didn't do this on purpose. I didn't want this to happen. This happened because they illegally logged where they weren't supposed to. And the mountain, the only thing that holds mountains together is rocks and tree roots. So when the rain came, and it was too much rain for that area, it filled the mountain with water until the mountain had no choice but to come down. A couple of years later, I moved east of the mountains to where my tribal people are, call them. The year that I moved there, we knew that forest fires happened over there, okay? But they were usually confined to one small area. The year that I moved over there, the entire Northwest was on fire. Most of the Southwest was on fire as well, California, Nevada, etc. We got smoke from as far away as Siberia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And some of us were actually really listening. Some of us were saying, okay, we get it. Mom, you can't do this anymore. This is, you're hurting. You're wounded. Yeah. And this is your way of letting us know. But still, it was localized, even though it was maybe the whole West Coast of America, it was only there. Now we have this virus. It's all over the world. We have to pay attention. We all got stopped and told to stay home. I personally was very grateful for that because I'm usually on the road way too much, or at least it feels like that when I'm really tired and exhausted. So I was happy to stay home. And then I started hearing friends and neighbors and all that kind of stuff, some of whom were also happy to stay home, and some of whom were beginning to think, wow, things are shifting. There's no pollution out here. What happened? Oh, we're not driving our cars. I keep reading articles and seeing videos that the animals are coming back to their natural habitat. Wow. Just because we're staying home? What does that mean? Maybe it means that I need to really look inside and see what I can do differently when we emerge from this lockdown so that this can be a better place for all creation. And I hear a lot of people talking about that all over the world. A lot of teachers who, like me, have been trying to get the message across for years are now saying, okay, this is it. This is the time that we have to emerge in action. It's no longer a time of wishing. It's no longer the time for, okay, well, we'll pray about this. Yes, we got to pray, but that's not all we got to do. One of the things that I've been doing in the last couple of years is something called an Earth constellation. Maybe some of you have heard of family constellations. An Earth constellation is done in the medicine wheel, in the circle of life. And everybody who comes to an Earth constellation meditates beforehand, asks which being would like to be represented, and speaks for whatever that being tells them. Okay? It could be earth, air, water, and fire. Could be the wolves, the owls, the cedar trees, the mountain stones. All those things get represented at different times. And Gaia, Mother Earth, is always in the center of that circle. We learn so much about what we've done and what needs to be restored. And what I've been hearing in this last couple of weeks, and why I started that Facebook group, Earthing a New Earth, is that each one of us has a piece of that. Each one of us has a knowing about something that we can do, either individually or collectively, to begin to, or to further restore balance here. Yeah. I know mine because I've already been doing it. I know Bridget's because she's already been doing it. Bev, I'm sure you have been. Michelle, I'm sure you have been. I'm sure that there are a lot of us who already know, but there are also so many of us who are going to need us to help them figure that out. Yeah. And the first way that we help them, drawing it back to what we started with, Bridget, is helping them to understand that we are all connected and that there is no I'm better than, yeah, or I deserve more. So how do we do that? You know, I sort of feel like the last couple of years anyway, I've mostly been preaching to the choir. You all know this. I'm not telling you anything new. And there are a whole lot of people out there that I really want to reach, that it would be something entirely new for them. So how do we do that?
Well, that's I mean, those are the things that I'm working on, getting rid of my radio show because people can't see other people, right? There's like a connection, and changing a format to having people on so I can do talks with people about whatever, that's important, and trying to change that format and whatever the people want to talk about. Then it goes out, records, and then I just wait to see what kind of feedback, that comes about because, you just don't know. And one of the things that I think I was raised with, my stepdad raised me, and he was a World War II veteran. He was older than my mom, and he was very strict, but he raised me with, if there's garbage on the ground, it doesn't matter whose it is, pick it up. We're not even going to discuss it. If it's there, you're standing there, then you need to pick it up and you need to, put it away. And I was a little kid, when the native man, the garbage was really bad in the rivers, and they had those commercials, and the native man was crying. And that really upset me, as a kid. And I didn't want to ever pollute anything. I wanted to make sure that everything was clean. So my dad was adamant about, it doesn't matter whose job it is. If you're there and you see a job, then you just do it. You just take the time to do it. And one of the things I think people would be astonished about, I try to tell people, if you don't know what to do, try to focus on something physical. For example, there is tons of garbage in the rivers right now. There is so much garbage here in the Truckee River. It is astonishing for the last 4 years. And there are days where I just go out in the river and I'm pulling garbage out, when it's a little bit lower. I have a 5-gallon Home Depot bucket. I drilled holes in the bottom so I could put stuff in there that's wet and the water comes out. And I drag it up. I put it in bags, so they can pick it up, the garbage. And there's been days where I've been down there where it's been so overwhelming that, I just cry. I just cry about, like the whole situation, that nature doesn't really deserve that. But sometimes I think just the fact that I'm down there, that I'm doing my part, even if only if I get one 5-gallon bucket for the day, I feel like, I've accomplished something. I've like my dad that raised me, do the action, do something. Don't just sit there and be overwhelmed, but find one little thing that you can do. Walk along a path and target garbage, or talk to other people, or wave, or something that makes you look friendly and greetable, and wanting to, get to know other people. And what's really funny is I get really upset about the garbage in the river, and my dog thinks it's the best day out ever. She thinks it's like party, like it's, swim party. And here I am, like cleaning up garbage. And so it's interesting. I learn a lot of perspective from her as well. Like my most difficult days in seeing the garbage and dragging it out and being by myself down there and doing it, is her happiest day, because she's flying into the water, and running around. So I don't know. Sometimes I think it's maybe if people could just focus in on what's in their area. What does your river like? Does there garbage? What's happening? Go down there and look. Take a look.
Mhm.
Fight for community gardens. grow something in your backyard, you know. I mean, that's because I think that we're there. I mean, we're part. I mean, I think prayer and all that stuff is insurmountable. Like there have been periods in my life that only prayer could have gotten me through. But there's also now, I think, one of my native teachers, he said before he passed, you know, he said to me that you're going to do this. You guys have to do this, because if you don't, there's nothing that's going to save you. So you're either going to learn this lesson the most horrible, tragic way, or you're going to learn this lesson in the most beautiful, gracious way. It's your choice. If the earth flips, whatever happens with the earth is your choice. It's your decision. And so you're going to learn it either way. You're going to learn it the easy way, or you're going to learn it the hard way. So I'm like, you know, I'm going to be going down out there, you know, cleaning up the nature and putting seeds in the ground, and you know, rehabilitating what I can, what I'm allowed to, because I feel like I've been really boxed in. So, you know, I have to put my efforts, you know, where I can, where I think it's the most valuable in that moment. You know, if I can't travel, I don't have a car anymore, I don't have this, I don't have any place to grow food, kind of homeless, you know, where can I benefit, you know, instead of looking at my situation as, you know, tragic, looking at, but what can I benefit? You know, I have all these seeds. I can go down to the river and plant seeds. I can go pick the blackberries along the river and talk to the blackberry bushes and tell them, you know, how grateful I am that they continue to grow. So those are things that I think, you know, that we just have to get out and look around and see where we're needed. You know, even if you just hug a tree, that's kind of my thing. And get that garbage out of the river, you know, respect. Well, and you know, this is really funny, because it wasn't until recently, the last 5 years, where I was like, oh, respect my elders took on a whole new meaning, because the water is older than I am, right? She's my elder. Most trees, you know, in the forest are my elders, you know, and the rocks and everything else, and the snow, all these things, the wind, you know, all these beings are way older than me. And so I have to learn how to respect them. And how do you respect them? You take care of them, and you clean them, and you help them, and you know, put beautiful flowers in them. Like the river, you know, is having a rough day, you throw some beautiful flowers in there, and, you know, make it, you know, hey girl, I got your back, I'm over here. But yeah, realizing that a lot of these things are my elders. All seeds are my elders because they're older than me. They come from beings that were planted a lot longer than I was. So I try to always remember that everything that's older than me deserves my respect and my gratitude. And because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them either. So I don't know. It's hard. It's a hard question. You know, how do we help people to see what should be so obvious? And I think talks like this can help people, because you know, the environment, I get really emotional about the environment. I get really upset. But I
You
don't
know,
know.
one of the things that really impressed me when I first went to Europe is that they all told me, because of the Inquisition and the World Wars, they'd lost all their culture, they'd lost all their traditions and all their ceremonies, right? And I heard them. But then I went to the forest and the rivers and the ocean, and their one mountain in Holland, which I happen to be related to. And I asked, ancestors, are you still here? Sure, of course we are. Well, they think that everything's broken. It's not broken. We're just waiting for them to come.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. So I went back and told people that, and they had this puzzled look on their face. Well, how do I do that? Just go. Take an offering. Make the offering. Ask your ancestors to speak to you. Ask them to show you the old rituals and the old ways. They're right there. Yeah. That was in 2012. It's now 2020, so that's 8 years ago. I am absolutely amazed at how the communities that I work with have taken that to heart. They're out there doing ceremonies. They're listening to the ancestors who tell them exactly what needs to be done in that river. Yeah. They've got their governments involved. Their governments are now saying, okay, we need to restore this river. Oh, we can build a stone circle here, and people can do ceremony there, and people can come and pick up all the trash, and we can have a place for all the trash to be so that it can get taken away. Oh, wow, what a good thing for our city, our municipality, our county, whatever it is, to do. Yeah? And they are starting to do it. And I so appreciate that. At the same time, I find it really hard to do it here in America. There are a lot of very resistant people in America. I think it's that this virus is actually going to change that a lot. And we're now past time. So do you want to say
Yeah.
something?
No, I think, we're good. I think you covered all the bases. I think thanks for coming on the talk. Hey, do you want to because you were talking about people being cut off, and I know you have way better prayers than I do, but some people are just better at prayer than other people. But do you have any, like, what you could end with is some kind of simple heart prayer that when this goes out, then people will be able to repeat that prayer and like learn how to connect with their heart just a little bit better?
Well, I don't have one that's like a memorized prayer, but I can surely say one. Yeah.
Great, that would be great, because people are always asking me like for simple things that they can say, and I try to do the best I can, but a heart prayer is always a good prayer to have, or thought, intention.
Okay. So, great mystery, all our guides and helpers and ancestors, please help us to open our hearts every day, every moment, and by doing so to receive the instructions, the guidance, the answers that we need, both for our personal lives and for the collective. Aho.
Oh. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you
It's
so much.
It's good to see you.
Yeah.
Let me know when you're doing other things, and Michelle and I'll try to be there.
Lovely.
Yeah, I was trying to remember when we first met.